Today, we walk the shores of Midkemia, flick our wands in Hogwarts, and clash with lightsabers on Tatooine. Welcome to an introduction on building and manufacturing worlds. Welcome to Tales Under the Cat Tree. I'm your host, Dupes, and these are tales by humans for humans. After all, words and stories are what give meaning to the worlds we live in. The storm had broken. Pug danced along the edges of the rocks, his feet finding scant purchase as he made his way among the tide pools. This is the opening line of a book called Magician by Raymond E. Feist. These sentences introduced a young me to the worlds of Midkemia and Calawan back in the mid-1980s. From dancing along the shore after a storm, I would adventure with Pug and his friend Thomas nightly on boats across seas and even across the universe. The world of Midkemia resembled our own. Feist's creation was a continent with nations, with what appeared to be medieval societies complete with castles and swordsmen on horseback. But this was a world entirely fictional, with magic, strange creatures, and an alien invasion. From Midkemia, I journeyed through the worlds of J.R.R. Tolkien. I became familiar with hobbit holes and the darkness at Mordor. I strode confident across the world of David Eddings, Narnia, Shannara, and to the edges of our future with Isaac Asimov. Ursula K. Le Guin threw me into a small boat called the Lookfar, across Earthsea, island hopping in search of dragons and the meaning of existence. Through an introduction to tabletop role-playing and Dungeons & Dragons, I discovered a sickly mage, Raistlin, and time-traveled in the world of Kryn. With Ed Greenwood's masterpiece creation of the Forgotten Realms, I journeyed alongside R.A. Salvatore's Drizzt Do'Urden and his companions through a dog-eared copy of the Crystal Shard into snowy vistas and later to the lands of Baldur's Gate and beyond. Even today, I can draw you a map of Midkemia, entirely from memory, as if I'm drawing a map of Canada or Finland. And here, if you're not a fan of science fiction or fantasy, you might think, maybe this episode isn't for me. But let me suggest that we all create worlds that we inhabit. Imagine when you're booking a vacation to a place you've never been. You people it in your mind's eye. You create visuals and ideas of where you might visit or vistas you might see. For many of us, that creation can become almost as clear as reality. The only difference for me is that I cannot get on a plane and visit these worlds. However, I could tell you about cities, landscapes, and vistas, and their histories, and be your guide in dreams and words. I do not know if we as a species are unique in our ability to imagine these realities when we close our eyes or read words on pages, but it is, to me, an amazing thing. Over the years, many friends and I have entered many fictional worlds through tabletop role-playing. In the last 7 years, my tabletop role-playing group in Helsinki and I have ventured through 3 worlds of our own creation. Not only has the group ventured through my fictional world of Dorodur, we are now simultaneously playing through the homegrown worlds of Andrés Díez de Castro and Nick Paro. What better way to introduce world building as a topic than asking my talented friends to come on the air with me? So I want you to hear a little bit about the worlds we are currently playing through, and also how Andrés and Nick building those worlds with us.
Hello, I'm Andrés. The world I created is actually nothing really original. I have my mind always open for any kind of idea from the pop culture. I would also say that I don't consider it my world, but our world, because from the beginning, I based many of the locations and characters on the background that the players gave to me. So it was already a collaborative effort from the beginning. But as a summary, my world is called Silma. Basically, the main event that shaped the story was a war where an alien race invaded the world and then 8 ancient dragons, probably the races of humanoids, against them. And after they defeat them, founded 8 nations. 1,000 years later, there was a big cataclysmic event and they mysteriously disappear.
Hi, I'm Nick. I think our world, or the world of Cascadia, as I named it. At first, I thought something cyberpunk and sci-fi elements. So Cascadia is a definitely influenced by a number of pop culture and other stories and worlds from 80s gritty cyberpunk, like Blade Runner, to more recent worlds as well. It's a magipunk world where the world is built, has technology, but everything has a foundation in magic. It's a megacity that has turned dystopian, run by corporations, where the people at the ground level are fairly downtrodden and exploited. That's really where the party started, and we're kind of figuring out how the world fits together to some degree at the table, everyone adding their own characters and their own backstories and their own ideas to the mix as well, to different degrees. I think it's been really cool how it's coming together.
At the end of David Eddings' epic 10-book series, the voice of prophecy tells the main character something to the effect that the world was created just to give the character something to stand on. In my mind, it's a tongue-in-cheek comment between characters and a little peek into a writer's statement on the journey that they have been on together with the reader. Writing has always been about creating a world for your protagonist to stand on and move through. It's true whether you're writing fiction or nonfiction, whether it's a world mirroring our modern reality, our past, or something completely fantastical. The words you choose and the vistas you paint create the boundaries of reality for your characters and for the narrative that you want readers to empathize with. Even when explaining a mundane concept, let's say, take shopping in a grocery store. You might need to create a world with a specific type of store, how people bag their groceries, how they pay. To ensure I get your point, you're going to need to create that world and place me in it. Your ability to do that, well, that's what sets the great apart from mere mortal storytellers. But where do you even start? In creating fictional worlds, I actually always started from a map. When I was 12, I think I must have driven my mom absolutely bonkers with the massive maps of my personal game world that I hung up in my bedroom. Yeah, while other guys in the 1980s had pinups of bands and sports people, I had a map of a magical world, a map which gave me boundaries. It allowed me to build the politics of the world. It gave a physicality that at least my mind needed to proceed. A map, however, is probably not enough. In tabletop role-playing, our worlds are collaborative affairs. Here's Andrés and Nick again on what makes a great world for them and whether a map is even enough. What more do you actually need?
For me, a good world has to combine relatable elements, especially cultural elements, with either a magical or a technological twist that make them fresh and unique if we are talking about fantasy and sci-fi. If you go too mundane, then it can become a bit boring. But if you go completely alien, it's very hard to make it relatable. I would say that wherever I think about a big magic system or a culture or nation or a character, I try to think how it is connected to everything that I already have in the world. So it's immersed into the world and not like an ad hoc that just sounds cool by itself. If you do that every time that you add a new element, that create a rich, connected world.
Yes, and I agree with Andrés as well in many of the points. You kind of need a red thread going through the world, I think, that kind of ties things together. A good world, especially when it comes to sci-fi and fantasy. You need something that's a bit fantastical. But if you go too far and trying to introduce too many different things, they can quite easily clash as well. I think some of the most interesting worlds have something that's unique, that's different, and then looking at the world, like how does this actually affect the world as a whole? And that's also often something that the characters and the story in that world can latch onto and play on to see what that type of character what they would be, what they would do in a story that is different from our world.
Now, over the past few years, I've become fascinated with how our brains observe and consume the worlds we manufacture. In movies and video games, we're presented with those worlds in all of their living glory. The mediums themselves are visual. They bring to life everything with sounds and animation and great acting. In books and role-playing games, these worlds are simply figments of our own imagination. They become part of our own mental models. The word blue, for example, will conjure a slightly different shade for each of us. I'm never going to know what shade you're actually thinking of when I say the word blue. Even more incredible is the realization that pictures in our minds are fundamentally unique experiences. I, as it turns out, am a hyperphantasic individual capable of conjuring a world in my mind that seems so real in my imagination that if you could witness it, you would think that you're watching a 4K movie with depth, color, sound, and visuals. For years, I thought this was the case for everyone. Now I understand that I am on the extreme end of a range where the opposite end are individuals who cannot see a single image in their imagination. Famously, Ed Catmull, one of the creators of Pixar, is aphantasic, and for him, the concept of quote-unquote a picture in your mind's eye was just a fiction, only to realize this was not actually the case. For him, it was as alien a concept as purple rain and red skies for someone like me. It is also the case that no creation or invention ever stands on its own. Our brains are great synthesizers. They take in a variety of inputs and merge everything together into a set of outputs. It's therefore not that surprising that when we create worlds, we are merging existing concepts and experiences together into something new. Eric Granstrom, who I interviewed in episode number 37, described that one of the rules for his world came from having worked in the software industry. Here's Andrés and Nick one last time, talking this time about their favorite inspirations for their worlds.
Over the last decade, I became such a big fan of Brandon Sanderson world building. He has all his books have amazing magic systems that are treated almost like science, with rules that has some predictability but also some mystery. The world where the Stormlight Archives occurs has a couple of unique concepts. One is that many ideas, concepts, or either natural phenomena are represented as some type of spirit, and the connection between those spirits and humans are the base of several connected magic systems. Another thing that I really like that thought it was really hard to do is make a relatable world where it's so alien that everything is mostly rock. There are no mammals, there are no grass in most of the world, and it's all because there is a eternal storm that go around and flush everything. So it's the animals are mostly crabs. Everything is adapted to this storm. So yeah, I really find it really unique. The world building is fascinating.
One of the first ones that comes to mind is Altered Carbon. If that's familiar, it was a sci-fi show from a few years ago. The main idea, the consciousness of people can be downloaded into, I think they call it a stack, which means in some ways people can be immortal because they can transfer the consciousness to a new body. And that's also reflected in the world and the story. Everything from how crime and punishment works to more like relationships to family to luxury. It's playing on all of those different things. I think that's quite cool. And also Altered Carbon is a cyberpunk futuristic world that's fairly gritty and has many of these elements that I generally enjoy in a good story.
Some of the most amazing worlds are those that we all have some connection to. Most recently, our pop culture has been filled with the likes of Hogwarts, the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and of course, Star Wars. Which brings me to the final bit on exploring fictional worlds through books, role-playing, and visual media. Unlike many people, I was introduced to Star Wars, well, actually, Indiana Jones and Doctor Who as well, not through a visual medium, but through books. So yes, Star Wars for me was initially the novelization of the movie. My imagination of the world of Star Wars might perhaps have been different than that presented to others on screen. However, George Lucas, through just words alone, was able to weave a world so compelling that when I finally watched the movie, it was like meeting an old friend after spending eons apart on different continents. The maps and visuals did not matter in the world he created, as Nick and Andrés have pointed out. The world was so rich through the breadth of the characters, the vistas of far-flung worlds woven together with a powerful narrative thread. The worlds we inhabit in our imaginations are incredibly powerful, and in the case of Star Wars, incredibly profitable. Our collective imaginations have widened that world through games, books, comics, TV shows, theme parks, and movies. Similar to Andrés and Nick and our role-playing group, creating the world we play in together, we have come to expect that world to act and function in a way that we believe we own it as much as those who created it. Such is the power of great world building and great storytelling. In coming weeks and months, I'm going to be talking to people who have built incredible worlds. I'm going to be bringing worlds to you, and I'm going to be bringing some of the stories that we have created together in our role-playing games to you. So today, I want to thank my friends Andrés and Nick for coming on the show to share their thoughts on worlds and world creation. What is your favorite fictional world? I would love to hear from you. Please get in touch at contact@dups.ca. Hey, thanks for listening to this episode. Listen to the archives wherever you get your podcasts or at tales.dups.ca. That's tales.dups.ca. This podcast is about the worlds we create, literally today, the realities we conjure, and the wonders of the human imagination. It is produced, edited, and created by Dilip Ujewardena. If you're lucky enough to have pets, give them a cuddle and some treats until we meet again for some tales under the cat tree.